welcome to another Cheeky Girl Creations video. So today I will be creating something with the Mixed Media December box, the Muted Tones, and this one is sold out, but I have a few previous boxes. I have 2018's June box, 2017's September box and 2017's June box, and all of those links are down below in the description, so you can check those out if you like, and they are all marked down. The original price is 18, so they're all marked down to 12, so if you would like to grab yourself a little deal, please do check out those links. So I've already done the unboxing video, and I'll link that in an iCard in the top right hand corner. So like this is the card where you'll see everything that's included in the box, so you can see all of that in detail in that video that's linked above. And what I don't get to show you in the unboxing, because this card links you to the unboxing video, is when you open up your box, it will have a QR code and a link that you can follow to go see the unboxing video. So in the last video I made these pages, and because there is a mixed media plate in here, so these are the leftover pages I didn't use. And the mixed media plate I got was a circle. Everyone gets a slightly different shape. I know you can't see very well because it's clear. So I created these like prints with them. So this is the cardstock, this is the 120 GSM paper, and then this is just a scrap piece of paper I was using to roll off my brayer, and I just decided to do some printing on this as well. And I was supposed to put them underneath something so they would dry flat, but I forgot, so these curled up, but the cardstock curled up a little bit, but not too much. But that's okay, because I'll probably end up like cutting them up into like shapes and patterns and stuff. So what I'll be doing in today's video is decorating this canvas board. So the last video I was doing the prints in preparation for this video, and I don't know if I'll use the chalk, the clear chalk primer yet, but just an FYI, when you get your clear chalk primer, make sure and stir it. Now sometimes you might have to go in there with a palette knife to give it a good mix before you shake it up, and there is a palette knife in here, and that's just to kind of get at the bottom, because all the good stuff tends to settle down at the bottom, and that the stuff at the bottom is what primes your page or canvas or whatever. This is staying quite well mixed, but I can see it's a little bit separated. Not sure if you can see that. So I'll give it a good shake before I use it. So I shall put this into fast forward mode. I have no plan for what I'm going to do with the canvas board, except from I just want to be able to use the papers I printed to show you how you can use them. So I shall put this into fast forward mode. I will have a voiceover so you know what's going on, and yeah. Okay, so first I wanted to add some texture. So I just took this napkin and I peeled off the like the back layer. There tends to be a couple layers with napkins, and the back layer is very lightly printed, but of course the top layer is darker, so I was going to use that. I'm just using one of the squares from this napkin, and I'm just tearing it into different sections, and you can cut this with the scissors, but I like to tear it so there's a much softer edge when you go to stick it down, instead of a hard edge if you were to cut it with the scissors, especially if you're sticking it over like a coloured background. And now I'm just using a palette knife with some PVA glue to stick that down. Just an FYI, when you're using a palette knife, it does tend to tear the napkin, so if you don't want your napkin to get torn when you're sticking it down, use like a paintbrush, like you don't mind getting glue on. So I've taken one of the deco papers and one of the papers that I printed using the mixed media plate, and now I'm just trying to figure out where I want to put those papers down, because I wanted to add some colour but with the papers. So I'm going through some of my embellishments, and one of those embellishments some bird cages, and I was thinking that I would have like a few bird cages and then maybe some like music notes kind of coming away from the bird cages. So I just quickly laid that out. And now I can figure out where I want to put the papers. So I'm just pulling that underneath the chipboard pieces. And now that I was just happy with like how that would look, I'm going to peel them into like slightly smaller strips and then stick that down. Again, using PVA glue and my palette knife. And while I'm doing that, I thought I would just let you know that I have some Valentine products on my site. I shall link you to my Valentine's catalogue so you can see all the products I have. And of course, there are many more on my site, and all of those links will be down below. And now I'm bringing in one of these paper doilies. I'm just putting it in a few areas, and that's really nice because you can't really see it very well, but then you'll pick up the texture when you put paint and stuff down. And I thought I would just add a little bit more of that napkin, just to add a little bit more layering. You can see how the napkin just kind of melts into the background, which is really nice. Okay, so now that I've gotten all of that stuck down, I'm just taking my clear chalk primer and I'm giving it a bit of a mix first. And then I'm just going to give it a quick layer on the canvas board, just so that everything just has like the same kind of surface. That's the nice thing with primed. When you prime things, it just gives it a nice leveled look. So now I'm going to bring out my paints, and this one is yellow ochre, and I'm just using my fingers and I sprayed it with some water so it would spread a little bit more, and I just add some drips. And I'm making sure to add some paint to the sides as well. I like to make sure that my canvases and canvas boards have a nice coloured edge. So I'm adding some of that red. And now some purple. And as you can see, I've covered up most of the paper, but that's okay, and that's the beauty of mixed media. It's all about the layers, so the papers will really add more of a texture to it. And now I'm just blending everything together. And I felt that the colors looked a little bit strong, so I'm going to just kind of dab some of that off with a paper towel. Oh, I'm adding a bit more paint there, sorry. So yeah, I'm just dabbing some of that with the paper towel, which also helps some of the background come through. And I'm blending that in again. I didn't really like the texture that the paper towel left back. I wanted a very smooth texture, so I'm just blending that in. I just wanted some of the paint removed. And now I'm going to add some white, just to brighten it up a little bit, and that's from my own stash. And see, that kind of brings everything together a little bit more. It just brightens up the whole canvas board. I just felt it looked a bit dark. Okay, and now that I've added white pretty much everywhere, I let that dry completely. And I thought that actually I had completely changed my mind about the bird cages, so I would use that butterfly from the napkin as a focal image instead. But first I'm just adding some stenciling with an ink spray that I made myself through one of the stencils that comes in the kit. And I just kind of dabbed the excess of the ink onto one of the papers I printed. And now I'm just going to give the spray a quick dry. And because the spray is kind of light, it just adds a nice soft visual texture to the whole canvas board. But I thought that wasn't enough, so I'm now going in with my paints, using the same stencil and a palette knife to just go in. And now a small palette knife does come with this box, but I didn't happen to use it. I just used this palette knife since it was already on my table. And like, say if you don't have a palette knife, an old credit card, gift card, anything, or even like cardstock is a really good way to stencil. But I would recommend an old credit card or gift card that has a much harder surface, and that'll give you a much cleaner stenciled look. So I'm just going to add some white now to brighten things up. just after I give the stencil a quick clean. So you can see that's the butterfly I'm going to use from the napkin. And after I dried it, I wanted to add some white. And it was good to dry it before I added the white so I didn't like muddy anything up. And then I was happy with how the background looked. I'm giving that a nice dry with the heat gun, and while I was drying that, I did like bubble up some of those stenciled areas just to add a little bit of texture. I enjoy it when you bubble up the paint, it looks really cool. And I didn't want to rip my napkin, so I'm using a paintbrush this time to stick the butterfly down. And I made sure that stuck down really well, and you can see how the edges just kind of disappear into the background. And I felt like I needed something else, so I was just kind of looking through those die cuts, but that wasn't it. And I'm going to take some more of that napkin and use those bits again. And that's nice with the layering, so the more things I layer, and since I keep on layering pretty much with the same thing, they all just come through in slightly different ways, and I really like that. So I'm taking those kind of filigree looking things and that kind of stamp, and I'm going to stick those down as well. I forgot to use my paintbrush with that, but thankfully I didn't end up like damaging the image too much. Yeah, so there you can see I'm going with the paintbrush because I went in first with a palette knife. I didn't mean to do that, but that's okay. And I didn't want to use all of that bit, so I'm just tearing off the bottom, and I'm going to stick that down as well. And even though it blends in pretty well without me really having to do anything, I will go in and make it look more like part of the canvas in a little bit. And those little flat back gems, I thought I was going to put that in the middle of the butterfly, but then you'll see that that plan changes very quickly. So I'm taking out some black paint, and I'm going to go over with the butterfly to make it really pop. It just looked too faded and as if it was disappearing into the background. So I thought I would just add some of that black to really make it pop. So I'm taking quite a small paintbrush so that I can get in all that detail. I'm just going to fill in the areas. And this is a great way as well, especially if you're not too confident with drawing and stuff yet. You can use napkin images and then go over with whatever color you want. So there's a bit of a cheat for you there. And you can see how like that one wing is really popping out a lot more. And I was really happy with how that was looking. So I'm going in and adding that all in. I'm trying my best not to cover up too much of the detail in the wings, but I will bring that in with some more paint in a little bit. And I'm putting this in with a dry brush. I didn't want my paint to be too wet. I also made sure that this it was completely dry before I went in with the paint. I didn't want to rip the napkin by accident. Okay, so now I'm going to add some details with my different paints. So I'm using the yellow ochre as a kind of highlight, and then I'm going to just kind of go in with those details of the wings. And I'm thinking that the sun is coming from like the right, so I'm putting all the yellow ochre on the right hand side of the butterfly's wings and body. And this is where I thought that actually I wasn't going to use those flat back gems just because I really liked how the painted look was. So I figured I didn't need the gems. It might have been a little bit too much. And again, even though the brush has been like, it was washed between the black and the yellow ochre, I did dry it off quite a bit on a paper towel because I still wanted a dry brush effect when I was painting the butterfly. So now I'm going to use the purple as a like shade. So I'm putting that on the areas where the light wouldn't be hitting the butterfly, and I'm just using that to add a little bit more detail. And I'll put that in some of the wing as well, but just not as much as the yellow. And I wanted to bring in the white, not the white, sorry, the red. So I thought I would just add that to like the detail parts of the wing and like some of the middle of the body, since it didn't really have a designated like highlight or shading kind of job to do. So I was happy with how that looked. And some of this like some of the napkin that was around the butterfly, when I stuck it down, I found it looked a bit too dark and it stood out too much because that was really supposed to be in the background. So I was just going over with some leftover paint just to kind of blend it into the background a bit more. And I felt that the butterfly still wasn't popping out enough, so I'm just going to add some white paint in the highlight areas, and that I thought helped quite a bit. Okay, so I thought the edges looked a bit plain and the canvas board just needed to be grounded. So I'm adding a border, again using the same pink colors I have through the whole process. And when I'm putting it over the edge, I'm just kind of blending it into the surface a little bit, just to kind of bring the border in. And then I just thought that just looked right, you know, it made it look grounded and just brought the canvas board together, and I was much happier with how it was looking then. And the butterfly still wasn't standing out enough for me, so I'm using some white and I've watered it down quite a bit, and I'm just going to use that to just blend out the area. So you can see how that pushes the background back a little bit. And I'll also do that for the other main images as well. And while I'm doing that, I thought I would just mention, if you have received one of the boxes and you've done some art, please do share it on the Facebook page. That's linked below in the description. I would love to see what you guys create. It's really interesting to see what people do with the same kind of supply. So please do share. And even if you haven't gotten the box and you've just tried something that you've seen in one of my videos, or you've just done a spot of mixed media, art journaling, or anything yourself, please do share below. I just love to see other people's creations. Okay, so now I'm just going to add the same kind of technique to these other images. Purple for the shading, the yellow ochre for the highlights, but I'm doing this a lot more messily because this isn't like the focal image as much as the butterfly is. But this time I did it kind of backwards from the way I did it before. I went purple, red, yellow ochre instead of yellow ochre, purple, and then red. So that was interesting to see how it turned out. There was more yellow ochre up top, but I did that mainly because the images were smaller. So if I did the yellow first, it would have gone covered up by all the other colors. And I'll also add this, the white as well, so that it really pops. And yet again, I'm adding some white to the background to make those images pop out. It was a bit trickier with these because the images were so much smaller, but I was able to get that done, and that just made it pop out a lot more. And with this one, I didn't really go in between like all the details, just on the outside, and I found that made it pop enough. I didn't really want it as I didn't really want it to stand out as much as the butterfly did. Just stand out enough so that you could see it. I'm adding a little bit more white around the butterfly. I still felt as if it didn't stand out enough. And then that gave it the pop that I wanted. Okay, so now that that is all dry, I'm picking out some papers, some of these mini papers, because I wanted to write like a kind of quote or something. And I decided to write out in full flight. So I've grabbed one of my liner brushes. It's a nice detailed brush, and I'm just quickly practicing how I want it down. And first I'm going to tear the edge of that paper. I didn't want it to have a hard edge, especially since nothing else really did on the page, so it would blend in a little bit more. And now I'm going to go in, and again I'm using some white, not black paint, sorry, that's a bit watered down. So I put in and full like around the same size, and then I'm going to put flight a lot bigger. Okay, and then I'm going to tear that out. And I did end up smudging some of the words. I didn't really wait for it to dry properly, which I should have, but I was being a little bit impatient. So I ended up smudging it, but that's okay. You'll see how I make it look as if that's planned. So I'm just going to add some paint to the edges, just kind of randomly. I didn't want them to look the same when I was adding the paint. So I'm adding all 3 paint colors. And again, using my fingers to give it a really nice messy edge. I'm also adding some white. That just helped to blend all the colors together, especially since most of the background has a lot of white in it. And I'm just going to really smudge some of the edges, and then you won't really notice how I smudge some of the letters. Okay, and now I'm just going to try to place it how I want it. And I fiddled around with this a lot, to be honest, until I figured out how I wanted it. And I'm just adding some more black. I felt as if it didn't stand out enough once I added the paint. And I'm adding some black to the edges as well because it just wasn't popping off the canvas enough. Okay, and I'm just going to add some white splashes all over. And I will dab some of those splashes off with a paper towel away from my butterfly, just to kind of lighten those splashes a little bit. And I was happy with that, just like the background got that extra it needed. Okay, so I figured out how I wanted the word, so I'm sticking that down with some tacky glue. And and I didn't put any glue over top. I didn't really feel as if it needed that, and because I only put tacky glue in the middle, some of the edges lifted up a little bit, which I thought looked kind of cool. And I felt as if it still wasn't sticking out enough, so I'm adding some more white, but even that didn't really do it for me. So I can't remember if I caught this on camera, but I did add some more highlights using my Uniball Signo white gel pen, and that just made it pop a lot better. Okay, and I felt as if it needed a little bit something, so I was just looking to see if the gems would have done anything. I'm just going through my embellishments, but I wasn't really feeling any of them. I'm adding some gold paint using my liner brush, and that helped a lot. It was as if that was just one of the things it was missing, just a little bit of shine. So I'm adding that to the butterfly, to the other images, and like around my words. And that made everything just add a little bit of just shine and some splashes and stuff. And I was really happy with how that added to it. So that is pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please do give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Don't forget to click that bell so you get notified whenever I upload a video. And please do comment below if you want to see more videos like this or you have any suggestions. So thanks again for watching, and I hope you join me again for another arty video. Bye!